C'est compliqué, c'est compliqué. Ow. What's the vibe? Yeah. How about we start over? Hi, my name is Lily. This is Eats and Knits, a place on the internet where I want to talk about wool and I want to talk about knitting because there's only so much talking about knitting you can do with your normal, regular friends before they throw you out. I've been knitting for a year. I started knitting in September 2022. I bought myself a set of needles for my birthday. We're reaching the 1 year anniversary now, and I thought that I barely can believe how deep the obsession has run since I started with this craft. So I basically consume podcasts, knitting vlogs like on a daily basis, and I want to bring just my my tiny contribution to this beautiful documenting process that everybody's up to. Yeah, because I'm so yeah, I really enjoy knitting. That's my main craft. I was crocheting before and got into knitting. That's a different story. Another thing I'm really good at is pushing things back until they never happen. So this is really an imperfect situation. I told myself that I would take a bunch of notes and that I would have a very specific script and I would block all of my knits and like really put them in their most pristine conditions so that I could show them. And then I found myself even trying to finish projects as fast as I could so that I would have more things to show for the 1 year video, which I always wanted to do. Nothing is perfect. Knitting is not about being perfect. It's about, for me anyway, it's about taking part in an ancestral craft, something that connects me to a bunch of different generations of women. I think it's a very powerful skill, and also just yarn is great. It's not about being perfect, it's about learning together. And if you are a person like me who has a full-time job and just knits on the side, definitely on the side, not at their work, on the side of their work. My lawyer advised me to mention that. If, like me, you're a person who knits as their hobby and you are not just like getting out a ton of garment, and also you just want to hear about another lady's adventures in fiber, then thank you. Also, if you are future me, which I assume you are, if you are future me watching this video and reminiscing about the beginning of your journey in craft, like, hi, how's it going? Very excited to see if anyone out there cares. I care. So let's get started. What am I saying? Yeah, okay. How is this gonna work? I am going to talk about each project that I made since I first started knitting last year. I'm going to hopefully talk about things I learned, why I decided to pick the patterns that I picked, and how it ended up wearing. And then hopefully I will talk about some works in progress that I have now, very briefly, and some goals that I would like for my second year of knitting. What are some things that I want to challenge myself to do? And yeah, other things that I want to try. So, all right. I want to talk about how knitting, when I say it's my first year of knitting, I really mean first year, meaning on September 8th, 2022, I picked up my first set and then I started learning from nothing. So the first things that I made, it wasn't sweaters, it wasn't like some intricate grade project, it was squares. I don't currently have those squares anymore, but they looked kind of like this. This is a swatch, but it's just, yeah, just square. So my first project genuinely is swatching stitches. I was swatching just garter stitch stuck in it, and I did also a couple. I think I did a couple squares of like 1 by 1 rib and 2 by 2 rib to just get used to purling and knitting. The ultimate motivation for me was always to make color work. That was the thing that brought me to knitting from crochet, is that I always wanted to replicate the Fair Isle look when I was crocheting. And then I just decided, well, what am I doing? I should just learn knitting. So I went first with color work, and the first things that I did were these sorts of mug cozies. This comes from, let me see the pattern name. See, this is why I should have taken notes, but it's okay. We're gonna figure it out. They're the Autumn Doodle Cup Cozy pattern from Pacific Knit Co. They're a designer that have doodle cards now. That's mainly what they do. I think is like cowl designs, and you can even for this particular designs, you could have a design for the border, a design for the main sort of the main event situation, and then you could alternate pick your colors and then build your own cup cozy. So that's one that I made. It's not bad, I think. Honestly, when I look at it now, it still looks okay. I think I did make a couple of mistakes. You can see that this ghost has 2 extra stitches here. And at the time I wasn't like, I guess I pick my battles. Sometimes I'm really intense about I made a mistake and I absolutely need to fix it. And then sometimes I just, meh, I don't care for some reason. So this little cup cozy, it's something I would definitely recommend if a person wanted to get started in color work, because it's very tiny, but you can kind of play along with different colors. You don't need a lot of yarn. All of these are acrylic leftovers. This was more of a autumn color palette, and then I also did a retro Halloween cup cozy. This one has dollar store yarn and it's sparkly. Can you tell how sparkly that is? So yeah, it's a really cool way to play with color and have little, oh, that's a pin that my friend gave me, thank you. Really easy, cool way to practice color work on a small scale before you commit to projects. And for the most part, you don't have to worry too much about fit. Though, I really did not learn how to carry floats in a way that would let them stretch. So I learned about that pretty quickly, that only certain cups were going to work, because I don't know if you can tell, but it just doesn't stretch. And that's because I didn't spread my stitches when I carried my floats, so that's why. But I think that for first projects, it's really not bad at all. This one I think was a little bit better, but still, it doesn't have a ton of stretch. These are my first completed objects. After that, I had in mind that I wanted to start knitting socks. So I went over on YouTube and found the pattern from Crazy Sock Lady for a vanilla sock in DK. And I made it using acrylic yarn to understand construction. It's very much a house sock in the sense that it doesn't fit great. It's very large. I didn't really understand the. I think at the time I was thinking that anything that was a 3 or a 4 was DK, And it just wasn't really clear to me how to substitute or to measure gauge. I was just not doing any of that at the time. I was also not tremendously worried about fit. I was just wanting to get a sock, and I did. I got two, in fact. And then the Kitchener graft broke on this one, so I put the stitches on hold, and then I never fixed it because they're just they don't fit that great. And also because they're acrylic, when you wear them, you tend to sweat, and then it just it's just not my go-to. But I love the colors. So that was great. I really enjoyed the fact that Crazy Sock Lady, um, she has really great instructional videos. I went step by step along with the video. I did this on Magic Loop, and yeah, I thought that it was a very it gave me the basis necessary to just feel confident to look at other projects and just dive in. Whenever I wouldn't understand a part or something, I would just rewatch it because she does it in real time. So you really don't feel like you have to guess anything. It's a great tool. I can talk about just the construction a little bit. This one is a slip stitch heel with a gusset, a flap and a gusset. And it's just a very classic construction. A great thing to learn. So what did I learn from this? I learned how to make socks, literally. And that helped me make my first colorwork pair of sock, which is kind of that was where I was going in terms of motivation. I really like having um, sort of a project in mind that's slightly outside of my comfort zone in terms of what my skill currently is, but then to really reach for that and have the motivation to just get the item. Like there's always this thing about, are you knitting for the process or for the finished object? I feel like I'm very motivated by the finished object, and not necessarily because I want to wear it, but just because it feels like a badge of honor somehow. Like I'm really really into having made that particular thing. So the next thing that I made was a pattern by Stone Knits, Magic Toadstool Socks by Stone Knits. And you'll see already that so much happened here. So much happened. This is hand-dyed yarn. This is alpaca, and this is color work. Yeah, so much happened because when I started getting more serious about wanting to get stuff done, at the time I was shopping pretty much only at big box stores because I just wasn't aware that there was such a thing as an LYS or hand dyed yarn. It wasn't coming from the crochet world. So for some reason, it really just didn't occur to me that it was an option. But for my birthday, I had received a gift card from my friends uh, for a local yarn store in Montreal. It's called La Bobineuse. Did I mention I'm from Montreal? No, I didn't. I'm actually from Belgium, and I live in Montreal with my boyfriend and my cat and my puppy. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to this interruption. I went to La Bobineuse, and I was like, okay, um, first of all, I am going to ask questions to the ladies, and that's a huge thing because I was pretty much having panic attacks and not brave enough to talk to a person in a store. But I was like, no, I have to do this. So I went to the store and I said, hey, I want to get yarn to make these socks. It's a bunch of different colors. What do I do? And luckily, I had that gift card money, so I have the huge privilege that I didn't have to worry that much over the price of that wool. I was mainly concerned at the time about, oh, is it bad to sort of use different fibers? Is it bad that one says lace weight and the other says fingering? This pattern says fingering. I don't know what fingering is. Like, these colors look good. Like, is that okay? And the ladies were just like, oh yeah, whatever. It's gonna work. Like, don't worry about it. If I could tell past me at the time, hey, maybe don't select alpaca for the toes and heels of your socks, which are the most hard wearing parts. And it's very soft, but it's also like not the best structurally. Maybe I would go back to myself and say, hey, maybe like pick a different color for or different fiber content for the heel and toe. But I mean, they're still here. They're great. So yeah. This green is my first hand-dyed yarn. It's from Dyer. The brand was Colorista. She's no longer in business, so you can't get this anymore. And the three other colors, so the red, the white, and the sort of pistachio green, they're all I think Harriet Fine from Juniper Moon Farms, and they're all alpaca, and they're lovely. Just yeah, maybe kind of a weird choice for making sock toes, but like nice. The pattern itself is just that was really great because if you can go back, if we go back to my vanilla sock, we have a ribbed cuff, just a leg part, a slipped stitch heel with a flap and a gusset, and a rounded toe. So same construction with just a portion of color work, which is not unlike this doodle. So really I felt equipped to get into a colorwork socks as my second project, and it turned out okay. I had learned a little bit more about the notion of stretch. So my floats are definitely stretchier, but I didn't know yet about negative ease for a sock. I don't know if you can tell. These are definitely a bit loose. I just wasn't really aware of how to make a good fitting socks, and I think that most people don't make a perfect fitting sock on their first try, especially not with color work in it. But yeah, so that was the second thing that I made. I loved this so much that I made another pair for my friend. Can I do the thing? I'll insert a picture here because I gifted them, obviously, and she lives back in Brussels, and yeah, she sends me pictures. She wore them. She was really happy. In her version, the entire sock is made out of alpaca, so they are even stretchier, even more, even less structurally sound. But as house socks, they're just very warm and nice and comfortable and whimsical, which important. What did I learn from this project is to ask for help in LYS, which I think is like a huge deal. Connecting to people in your town who are selling yarn to you and who can give you advice and wind your cakes and all that jazz. That was a big step towards the descent towards madness, I guess. After this, I made a hat. I don't have it because I gave it away. I'll insert a picture here or here. I don't know. Here, maybe. Here. I made the Tilda hat from whomst? Anis Sang. I'm sorry if I am not pronouncing that right. The pattern is free on Ravelry. So I'll try to be a good YouTube person and link the things that I talk about below. Um, Even if it's just for future me, like, hi, hope you're still there. Sorry, it's been going on a while. So anyway, I made this hat out of Karen. I'm not sure how to pronounce it either. Is it Caron? Caron latte cakes. Karen. Karen. Anyway, it's very fuzzy. I think it's an acrylic yarn. And the reason why I made this hat is because I wanted to try cables. And I figured if I try cables on a hat, I'll feel more confident for the ultimate cable project that I had, like as like a long-term goal that I really want to make is the Arctic Light by Kuutar. It's an all-over cabled sweater. Picture here. I haven't made that sweater yet, but I have yarn for it. And when I was thinking, okay, how do I get the skill that I need in order to get to that sweater, I was thinking about a hat. And so I made a hat. It was a weird yarn choice because of the fluffiness. You couldn't actually really see the cables very well. But, and also I made it two pattern, and I should have added a repeat of cable if I was to wear it on my own head. It felt a little bit more like a mini hat situation, which is not a fit that would have worked for me. So I gave it away to my landlord, actually, who's a very nice lady. She lives downstairs. I gave the hat away because she has a much smaller head than I. And what did I learn during that project? Well, I learned that when your train gets stuck outside of the city because the rails are frozen, you can finish a hat and it doesn't seem so bad that you're waiting for 3 hours at a full stop. But also, I learned that, yeah, just like everything, cables, sure, it's a different technique. It's not that hard, it's just new, and that feels good to approach those sort of technical things a little bit at a time. And it was a great introduction to cables. Very simple one, but worthwhile. We have to start talking about like some less successful projects. This is the project that I made after that. It's a shawl. It's called the Storm Fur Shawl. And the designer is Erika Jakowski from Fiddle Knits. And I'm just going to talk about the yarn before I talk about this. The yarn I bought on a trip in Quebec, and I was interested in buying local yarn or Canadian wool. And so I found some Briggs and Little, which, if you don't know, Briggs and Little is a Canadian made yarn. And I believe that it's made from a common pool of just fleeces from all over. I don't know if it's all over country or if it's just Ontario, Quebec. But basically, it's a common pool of wool for Canada. There's a lot of things like Dorset in there. There's just like sort of rougher, less, I would say, more rustic fibers. And they mill it in Canada, and it's just like a very I heard it described as a workhorse of a yarn, which I guess is appropriate. It's not soft, basically, is what it is, but it's very hard wearing and nice. And at the time, I had not worked with mohair yet, and I was like, ooh, but what if I used a very rustic yarn and then I paired it with a mohair? Would that make it less itchy? The answer is yes, to a degree. Whether it's itchy or not is really a personal thing, and for me it can vary. Sometimes I'm really fine and I'm actually happy. Ooh, I've been I've been like hugging the microphone with the shawl. Okay, let's try that again. Sometimes it's not a problem for me to have this next to skin if it's hot in the slightest, if I am feeling overwhelmed by other things already. um, Mohair is a stretch, and mohair on top of extremely rustic yarn isn't really working out for me. That's not the real problem with this shawl. Can you tell what the real problem with this shawl is? It's lace. Yeah, what a interesting pattern. It just kind of, because this is blocked, right? So why is it doing like this sort of turtle pattern here? That's because this was my first time reading a lace chart in a project that's worked flat. And I didn't know that when you work flat, you are reading your chart, starting from the right, and then you're so on the right, on the wait, what? On one side you start from the right, and then on the next row you start from the left, and so on and so on. I read all of the chart from right to left, and so basically it didn't do the pattern at all. And because it has the mohair, and I wasn't necessarily, I was always going to be like, oh yeah, well, it's probably just me, I'm not doing it, I'm not having the best tension. And there is some sort of like, there's kind of relief here. There's definitely, eyelets and stuff like that. There's some sort of recognizable pattern. It's just not super defined, or it also creates this weird bunching, and definitely, I mean, not what the designer has had intended for this shawl. And I didn't notice. I blocked this. I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna wear it because of the yarn that's like a bit itchy. Also, like the color ended up being not really my style. Though of course now I put it on and I'm like, oh, why not? But just meh. It just, I wasn't vibing with it, and I figured that it was me. It was me, but not for the same reasons. I actually didn't knit this shawl properly at all. And so now I guess I could frog it, but I think it's kind of funny to have this as a testament of, you know, the things you learn. So I learned about 3 to 6 months after the fact that you are supposed to read a lace chart from alternating rows, not all in the same direction. So yeah, but also at the time I wrote in my notes, I learned to do some lace. I learned how to, it was my first time using two fibers held together. And it was also my first time doing a more intentional blocking. I had used some rods to really try to. I'll insert some pictures of what it looked like when it was freshly blocked and on the mat, because at the time it retained less of this sort of puffy situation. It is what it is. This thing always makes me think of the cat in the Cats musical who sings Memory. I forget what is it, Gloria, her name? Memory. If I want to cosplay her, maybe that would be a good outfit. But yeah, so you live and you learn. Moving on. Let me have a sip. So my next project was another pair of Colorworks socks that I made for my boyfriend. It's Bear Socks by Jana Markovic. Here they are. On the blockers, you can't really see that it's a little bear, but I'll just show you the sort of construction. Here, it's a different toe. This one is it's a different toe. This one is a boomerang toe, is what they wrote it to be in the pattern. I remember having much more issues with how this sort of I guess they're just short rows, and when I was cinching them back together, it was just like crumbling. I thought that the pattern sort of assumed that you knew how to do this, and I did not. So there was initially a bit of frustration, and I had to go in to do some finishing, some sewing finishing inside so that there would be no holes here. But otherwise, it's really lovely. I love this little chart with the trees at the top, and it's a tiny, tiny little rib here, which is really cute. Then you have this all over color work, and of course, the big bear design at the front. Which, I mean, adorable. The yarn that I used for this is another, it's another combination of hand-dyed, I think it's just an 80-20 blend merino nylon from Colorista yarn, which again is no longer being made. And then again, some alpaca. But this time it's not in the, it's not just in, it's not used on its own, and it's not in the heels and toes. So progress, I guess. But it's also Harriet Fine by Juniper Moon Farm. This pattern was more of a challenge in terms of color work, and that's because of the all over color work. So if I turn this guy over, you will notice a tremendous amount of felting because they're being worn. If I turn this over, you'll see that the floats are being carried all around because of those little dots there. And maybe you can see the tension isn't necessarily the most even of all time because the yarn that's on top, so the main color is a lace. There's a slight difference in weight between that one and the one that is the contrast color. It maybe wasn't the best yarn combination because you can kind of see, if you stretch it especially, you can kind of see the brown poking from under the gray a lot. And maybe that's not the most flattering thing ever. And it lost a bit of its overall stretch because those floats are being carried all across the sock, and there's definitely still some practice to get a good fit on the colorwork sock, especially when you want negative ease on the sock so that it's not slouchy, but you also don't want your floats to not be able to stretch because then it won't get past your heel. I think that during the process of making this sock, I had some issues where I had to maybe frog part of it because it just wouldn't go past the heel. So that's why they're a bit large. They look a bit massive. And, you know, my boyfriend wears them a lot. He wears them in shoes, and so that's why, you know, it's not perfect. I could have like done a bit of shaving of the sock to properly show it, but that's just how it is. And it's actually interesting to see how it wears because at the bottom you can see places where the alpaca felted just a little bit with the wool that's underneath. There's also some wear around the heel, and I haven't had to, for example, here there's some little fibers peelies that I have to deal with. I haven't had to do any darning yet on the sock that I made, but you know, it's part of the life cycle of a handmade sock. So It'll be interesting to see. I was really happy with how these turned out in the end. Boyfriend was definitely very happy. He wears them a ton, and now I'm looking at them. I'm like, "Ooh, should I remake them also for me? Should I? Yes, probably." And then after this, I made my first, what I would consider my first garment. You would say Orange Socks garment. I want to say they should count, right? I feel like very much people, when they talk about garment knitting, it's only sweaters and intricate tops or whatever. I think socks count as garments. My next project is a sweater, and actually it's a short sleeve sweater. So is it really a sweater? I don't know. Here is a sponsor. I'm very happy with this. I'm also really liking it with my pink hair. Yeah, I'll probably like insert some pictures of me wearing it. This is my first garment that I really put a lot of thought into fit, and it was really easy because the pattern is customizable and has instructions that are very much about knitting to a measurement or knitting to a certain part of your body without a specific row count. And that allows you to just really knit it and trying on as you go and uh, hit critical parts of shaping. There's just a little bit, I don't know if you would call it waist shaping, it's just decreases. I'm not sure what the vocabulary. It's reverse stockinette. It has the very lovely it has the very lovely um, sort of arrows, or it almost looks like little pines, especially in this color. And then at the bottom there's a twisted rib, as well as on the sleeves, cuffs, and on the collar. It's a top-down construction with a yoke. In hindsight, I would probably make it a bit longer. I definitely am one of those people who I should probably, when I feel the itch of wanting a project to be done, I should probably put it aside a little bit longer. And so I don't just rush the end of the project so I can get that finished object. In this case, I was really into getting the finished object to wear it because I think that the fit of this is wonderful. Was I covering my mic the whole time I was saying this? This is the spring sorrel. It's from Wool and Pine Design. This one is spring, but they have a summer version that's looser t-shirt style, and also a winter, or I guess regular version that's just a long sleeve sweater. I think with mohair. I'm not sure. This is just one strand of DK weight. Um, I used hand-dyed yarn, and you can see that I did not alternate skeins, and so there's some amount of pooling there, but I'm not mad at it. I think it looks okay. Um, I'm not mad at it at all. I think the color is very deep and beautiful. So yeah, I think worth it. This is a yarn that I bought from Len Biscotte. It's dyed by Patrick Knits. It's called, their base is called DK Pure, and this colorway I think is called Sour Grinchy, something like that. It's a superwash merino blend. I think that also has a little bit of silk built in. It does pill a little bit. So that's, you know, part of the game, I guess. It's extremely soft. It's very nice to wear. I don't know. It's going to be the most durable garment of all time. And again, like, it's one of those things. At the time I wasn't even thinking about, I wasn't deep enough yet into the consideration for fiber. I was just thinking, that's an amazing color, I want it, let's get it. I would, use a little bit, what is it called, like, is it a gleaner, is that what it's called, a little razor for your sweaters where you just shave off the pilling. And also, one thing I have to mention is that even though I have bought a bunch of superwash yarn, I still do sometimes. I never wash in the washing machine because I have a washing machine that doesn't have a delicate cycle, and I also can't control the temperature. It just says warm wash regular and short cold wash, but it's a heavy duty sort of, yeah, industrial looking machine, so I just don't trust it. So even though it's a superwash yarn, I have been only washing by hand, and also not washing that much because it's wool. It's not smelly, which is great. I wore this proudly at Knit City, Montreal, my first yarn convention, a fiber festival. And everybody was just stopping me to ask me about my sweater, which is like every knitter's dream. And I got to, yeah, just yap about how I made it and how it was my first sweater. I was so happy. So yeah, very good memories in here. Every time I'm just looking at these things and I'm like, should I remake them? I didn't expect this because I'm not really a person who repeats patterns. But yeah, should I just like remake everything a second time, and that's my second year of knitting, it's just the exact same the exact same project. Should I remake my shawl and still make the same mistake for laughs? I realized that I haven't brought my next project. I'm gonna go fetch it, but where is it? All right, so my next item isn't a garment, it's a bag. This is the Whidbey Bag by Wool & Pine Designs again. I made this bag because I was trying to get rid of some acrylic stash that I had before I started getting interested in garment making, and I figured that I didn't want to just waste a bunch of acrylic. I ended up giving a lot away to some people in my life that I knew were interested in it. So that's a different story. But I was trying to get a use of some of my acrylic and polyester fiber. So this is this is, I think it was called "Feels Like Butter" or something by Lions Brand. Is that possible? And then just a bunch of different ends. So this is a drawstring bag. Interesting construction. You start with a provisional cast on, and you make sort of a little chamber for holding the I-cord drawstring. And then the colors are weaved in. So each strand is just a long string of yarn that's being weaved in with a darning needle. And I think that's really great because you can use a lot of just random bits and bobs of yarn that you have. I don't know if you can tell my vision in terms of color palette. I just had a ton of this red yarn. I was like, I have to do something with it, but it's really like fire truck red. I don't know what I was thinking when I got that. So then I figured I'm gonna go for a mushu theme and try to get all the colors from the dragon. So yeah, that was the vibe I was going for. And yeah, if I turn it inside out, there's a bunch of ends that are just tiny little knots. Ideally, you would have a lining in here and you wouldn't see this, but I don't care. The only thing is that this yarn in particular is probably not the best idea for this type of bag, just because it's so slippery, and that the eye cords at the ends are just supposed to be attached to each corner by just making knots. And I mean, because it keeps being so slippery, the knots are just not holding. And that's why this set of eye cord is actually just not attached anymore, because it slipped out. I don't have that much of a tail on this either, so I'm just not really sure. Maybe I'll go back in the through the two ends of the eye cord, attach more of an end, and then weave it in all the way across. That would probably be the more secure way to do this. But anyway, this one is also going to die on me very soon. So right now, it's not functional as a. Uh, it's functional on this side. It's functional if you're holding it like this, but it's not like a put it over your shoulder, carry stuff in it kind of a situation. It's also pretty stiff. It doesn't have a ton of drape. It's a cool bag. Just have to, if you're getting like small groceries, or if you're getting a book to go somewhere, or I was using it as a project bag for a while, but the needles kept poking out, and so that was just not really working. But you can carry just your little treasures and secrets in here, and it's very functional for smaller items. What I learned, this weaving technique, I had no idea was possible. I learned a provisional cast on, which I did the crochet provisional cast on. I made eye cords for the first time, and then realized why everybody hates making eye cords that are so freaking long. I briefly considered getting one of those um, sort of not knitting machine, but they're specifically made for making long eye cords. I was like, should I just get that? But then I realized, no, this is part of the process. I'm gonna make the longest eye cord you've ever seen. So yeah, here it is. The next two projects I don't have with me because I gave them away. The next two projects are socks that I made for friends' birthdays. The first one was um, a front lace panel sock. The sock was called Erica by the designer Anya Homan. Human. Just my friend had picked up the color that they really wanted, and said that they were looking for something. It was kind of funny actually, because they said, "Oh, I want a summery sock," but then they picked the least summery color of all time. So I decided to interpret it as a breezier sock, and that's why I went with an open lace pattern, so that it would be still warm, but let some breathing room in there. No, it was a fun, fast knit. I think I made one of the socks in like a day. But it was just a full day of knitting, though, like 7 hours straight of just knitting. Um, but I was on a deadline, so yeah, those two projects were knitting on the deadline, which was interesting. It was my first time sort of breaking down a pattern and say, okay, by this date I should really be done with the leg. By this date I should really be done with the heel turn and so on. So that was interesting. And then another pair of socks that I made for another of my friend's birthday was the honeycomb socks by Stephen West. Painting honeycomb socks by Stephen West. And I did the sort of the theme for those were using the pansexual flag colors. So I was looking for a design that would sort of allow me to stripe but still have visual interest, and I thought that these were really doing that. They ended up being very springy and nice. Those are knit at a very tight gauge, so it was interesting because um, I knit those on a US 0, which, tiny. It's slip stitch color work, so there isn't like any carrying of the floats or anything like that, but there were a ton of ends to weave in because of all of the stripes. So I did the weave and Steven thing, where you weave in as you go. As much as I could, I tried to make um, all of my stripes starts at the on the sole of the foot, so you wouldn't see the jog lines. I tried to do some jogless stripes, but it would kind of end up looking weird in some parts. So I also had to restart these socks. Like, I think I ended up restarting 4 times because I had misread some of the pattern. Then the fit wasn't great. It was way too tight. It wasn't the pattern's fault. It was really just that I guess I wasn't paying attention enough to how the construction was. I was just that was the downside of having a deadline. I was so focused on just getting through the sock that I didn't stop to look at what was going wrong fast enough. And I also I made a mistake in the number of repeats, and I figured, oh well, if I make the same mistake but just all over the sock, then it's not a mistake. It's intentional. It's just my own spin on it. Except that it ended up drastically changing the stretchiness and the structure of the sock, so that just wasn't an option. I had to have I had to frog all of my stripes and have like a bunch of tiny amounts of ramen. Of each stripe was like a little nest of color ramen. It was pretty intense, I have to say. But yeah, made it. She got them for her birthday. Um, she got somewhere out of them, and I think that they were a hit. So that's good. I would probably, I think that I would probably remake this pattern, but not right now, just because I'm still kind of scarred from having to do it 3 or 4 times in such a short period of time. Like, I need to give it a rest, but maybe one day. I was considering making it with some gray stellina, because I felt like it looked sort of like armor scales, and I thought, oh, that would be so cute. Maybe future me will take care of that. My next project. At this point, we are in the summer, and or the summer. Was it summer or spring? More like spring. Yeah, I started this late spring and ended early summer. It's the Kuutar top by Sarah Nordland. Here it is. This is a tank top that has 2 lace panels that are the same on the front and the back. And then they're knit flat. And by the way, this is where I learned after also restarting this, like I think I ended up restarting like 5 to 6 times this top. That's where I learned that the lace chart is supposed to go back and forth, not all the time in the same direction. And while making this, I learned why my shawl didn't turn out great. So interesting to know. So yeah, 2 lace panels worked flat and then joined in a row with a bunch of stuff in it, and a little fold over edge with just a little pearl ridge here to help it fold. Is then sewn in. I made this out of Noro Sonata because I bought yarn from another person on Ravelry who was selling. They were selling their stash, and I get from them 2 sweater quantities of Noro Sonata, one in this undyed or sort of natural look. It's called vanilla, and one in a copper I haven't done anything with yet. This one in particular, I think, has some silk, cotton, viscose. I think it's the blend, and it's just very interesting. It's also a single. It's not applied yarn, and it has some variation in thickness. So it's not the neatest thing. When you see the fabric, there are some chunky stitches, some skinny stitches, but I think that it's interesting for a summer or spring top. It just kind of brings something a little bit different. Like a lot of other people, I had to dramatically shorten the strap so that it wouldn't create a huge armhole. But I could have gone just a tiny little bit longer. Again, I was like, oh, this fits great. After wearing it for a day, I realized that this was slightly digging into my armpit. And I'm just not really certain. Like, how do you do it? You just cut your I cord and then you unravel and then pick back up. I don't know. That's probably how it's done, right? But if anybody knows, like, hey, future me, do you know? Yeah. There's so those are I cord straps, and the I cord goes all around the armhole, and then over here at the front, and yeah, just some. I think that because the yarn has this variation of thickness, it was a bit more forgiving in terms of showing mistakes that I've made. Because it just, you can just kind of say, oh no, it's the yarn that's irregular, not my stitches, like I just said before. Yeah, but I also think that it brings something to the lace to have slight variation. It's not as um, it feels a bit more organic, I would say. And the applied I cord has maybe, like, it's not the nearest thing in the world, but also I'm not mad at it. Like, what do we think? Yeah, so I wore this to Twist, which is another fiber festival in, what was the name? Saint-André-Avelan. Saint-André-Avelan in Quebec. That's where I went. It's I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hours away from Montreal. We drove there with my boyfriend. Had a great time. It was actually, I found it to be like a very lovely festival. I didn't take classes at that one, but it had a lot more Canadian wool. And there was also a lot more about spinning, which I'm not a spinner yet. But I really appreciated the focus on locally grown wool. That's my Kuutar top. What did I learn? How to make an applied I-cord edge, how to restart a top 7 times and still get through the damn thing. And first time using plant-based yarn. Well, plant-based, a non-wool yarn. That's it, I guess. First time sort of knitting a pattern that, like, I was seeing other people knit a lot at the time also. So that was I felt like I was part of the thing. So that was cool. My next project is another top, and this one I made for a very special occasion. We went to go see a movie that I felt required an outfit specifically made for it. I just didn't have a lot of time. I think I had about 2 or 3, I would say 2 weeks to make something to go see this movie. And so I made a Ghost Whisperer by Park and Knit, I think. Park Williams from Park and Knit. And can you tell which movie it was? I really, I just really needed to wear something pink, and I didn't own anything that was Barbie color. So I really needed to make a pink Ghost Whisperer. It looks a bit huge on this, but it is intended to have a lot of positive ease. So yeah, that's the thing. I didn't knit this out of mohair. I decided to go for a Surrey alpaca because I was worried about heat. No, sorry, I was worried about itchiness. I probably should have made this out of mohair because this is extremely warm. I don't know if mohair would be slightly less warm. I haven't made something that's just 100% mohair, but I still like, we're the 1st of October today. I still haven't really found a day that felt appropriate to wear this and keep it on for a long time because it's just so damn hot. It's also so damn pink. It turns out that this might not be my flavor of Barbie. I haven't really found a way to wear this outside of this movie going experience, just because I feel like this screams, look at me, I love pink. And I do love pink. I just don't really want that much attention, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it was a delight to knit this thing. It's just, it weighs nothing. It's 100% just air, warm pink air. And yeah, I was really happy with the outfit I had for the movie going, and I want to knit this again, but I want to knit it in a more wearable color, and I will see how this goes for the winter. I'm thinking that in the winter I might have more opportunities, especially in Montreal, to wear something that is really, really, really warm. Right now it's too damn hot, man. Like, still, that was nice. Happy about that. Um, the next two finished objects that I have, I also don't have it with me. They were two pairs of socks that I made for my grandparents when they visited me from Belgium. I'll insert pictures again. I think I used a free pattern called Decathlon. How do you pronounce that in English, though? Le Decathlon socks. They are a garter rib sock by Sue Granfield. I made it in Cascade Heritage Wave. Yeah, Cascade Heritage Wave. And I made the heels and toes in some just like mini skein that I had that I didn't really track, but it was just like an odd mint. Anyway, some random green color that I had in stash. Yeah, it was my first time knitting for people with drastically different feet sizes, foot sizes. My grandfather is a 44 in Europe sizing, and my grandma is a 36 in Europe sizing. So like teeny tiny feet and ginormous feet. Well, ginormous, everything's relative, but to me, it was just kind of interesting. I also knit this on a deadline, but because it was just a much simpler design, I think it went well. I also used the pattern of the fish, lips, kiss, heel. Fish lips kiss heel. Fish FLK. The FLK heel. Anyway, socks therapist fish lips kiss heel. I learned it because I watch Nitty Natty on YouTube, which I'm sure everybody who's would watch this would know. But Natalie from Nitty Natty uh, talks talked about how it's the go-to heel for her socks and their perfect fit socks as well. There's a lot of information in the pattern of the fish lips kiss heel about how to make a perfect fitting sock. Honestly, it's been nice to learn. I also enjoyed the short row technique that's being used in that pattern because I have had more success with creating an invisible seam, I guess, when I'm joining the two parts of the heel. Those are all my finished objects that I made in my first year. I'm going to really, really, really briefly talk about works in progress or unfinished objects. Unfortunately, I am affected by a very terrible disease, and that's kind of sad. So I'm sorry to bring this up, but I have an affliction called single sock syndrome. Yeah. If you're going through it, I hear you. Um, and, share resources, I guess. These are the Radish socks by Stone Knits. Love them. Uh, really, really cute little. I mean, look at these little guys. Adorable. This is an Eye of the Partridge heel, which is kind of like a. It's the same thing as a slip stitch flap, except that it's every other row that you do the slip stitching, so it creates a different pattern. Made this one, then I realized that I had to do some knitting for other people on a deadline, so I put this one on the side. Never made the second one. I actually have the cuff of the other one, just like already cast on and everything. It's still, my needles are still in the cuff, but I just never did the rest, and I will. Okay, I definitely will. Okay, so egg socks. I think this was the breakfast set from Stone Knits as well. Breakfast sock set. I love these. Like, how adorable is this? I made it in a slightly shorter version. I found this to be a little bit more challenging because it is 3 colors color work for a large portion of it, and it's also all over. So same thing as with the others, you quickly run into issues of stretch and fit because of just the way that you carry floats. I also ran into issues with the heel on these, and I haven't done the finishing work, so that's actually something you can see. Like, I have holes along the side of the join there because I just when it says pick up stitches and there isn't really an instruction on how to do it in a clean way, I just did my best, but it didn't really turn out. If I were to do these again, I would substitute for a fish lips kiss heel again. But I'm just going to make the second sock so that I can have a pair. My original goal was to have a his and hers. I had bought like blue yarn so that I could have a matchy matchy with my boyfriend. And in the end, I didn't even make a full pair for myself. So moving on, I will also get to these. This is actually a version of the sock that I made for my grandparents. It's also a Decathlon sock with a fish lips kiss heel. And this one is made out of Patins Croix socks. And this has been just my purse knitting. So the reason why there's only one of them is because I just finished it the other day while I was, I don't know, waiting for something somewhere. I have to cast on the other so that I can have another sock in my purse. But yeah, how cute is this? It's a bit rough, but when it's on your feet, you don't feel that it's rough at all. So yeah, little garter rib. A tragic situation, which is the Musselburg, Musselburg, Musselburg hat. I have tried to make the Musselburg hat, Musselburg hat. I've tried to make this hat multiple times, and then each time I make some sort of mistake, so I have to frog it this time. The first time it was way too big. I don't know how I measured my gauge. I think that I know it's supposed to be really great because you can measure your gauge at this like little mark, and it's great because then you know exactly, you don't have to swatch and whatever. But I find it really hard to tell when it says when you have enough to measure X amount measure, and I'm like, yeah, but which way though? Like, cause it's not like, when do I know, and then when do I know? I don't know. It's just ah. I've tried to make this work, but I just end up always with the wrong measurement when I follow the chart. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a thing where there is like some ribbing in the middle part and it's gonna be so great, but I started the ribbing too early, so this is not long enough for my head. um, I have to frog this, and I have frogged the other one that I made already. I'll insert some pictures so you can see how much. Actually, you can see exactly why I frogged it. I have to. It's another one of those where I'm going to start again, but when I'm less mad at it, because I I still am upset that it didn't work out the way I intended it to work. So I'm sure that it's just a question of, instead of trying to focus too much on how easy it is that there is like a spreadsheet or whatever, I should really just be like, try it on as many times as it takes to get the right measurement and take notes along the way, and then benefit from that in the future when you make it again. But for the first time, I just really shouldn't be messing with like making variations and whatever. Just like make it right once and then go crazy, maybe. But I don't know. I lose interest if I don't do something other than stuck in it for 6 years. I don't know. But I am determined to make this hat work. This one is just not the one. It's just not the one. Another project that's hibernating right now is the Plumeria top from Wool and Pine Design again. And this one is really silly that it's hibernating because it's pretty much done. I just have to do finishing work. So this top is made out of a tencel yarn. They're a very this is a lace weight, like this is one strand of it. And I held it triple to make a fingering weight, and it's a deep V that you can customize the deepness of the V by knitting by knotting the I cords. It needs some seam work here, and then the rest is just like a beautiful lace pattern that could really benefit from. I mean, it's going to be a lot better when it's blocked. It's on. Oh yeah, I was like, is it on tubing right now? No, it's finished with a picot edge. Yeah. So why is it not done? Well, because I had decided that summer was over and I really didn't want to look at this thing anymore because it did take a long time to go through. And the reason why is because I had to blend, I think, four skeins together in order to get the right gauge and also to get the right fade. You can see a little bit of striping here. I'm not too mad at it, but that's because I alternated skeins a lot. Uh, and so I alternated skins and I also faded and overlapped skins so that it would go from blue to a more purple color. But I'll show a picture of what the skins looked like originally. It was kind of a challenge to make it work together, but I had found these in a clearance bin. It was a really good deal for the type of fiber that it was. It's very cool, uh, cool in the sense cooling effect, and it is very nice and breezy. Interestingly, it's not cold enough for woolly sweaters, and I should be wearing tencel right now because it's still 25, 27 degrees out there. There's still sun. This is what I should be working on right now, but my soul is not there. So I'm keeping this in a bag. I'm thinking that at my next Stitch and Bitch, I might do the finishing work on this instead of working on something else, so that I can just be done with it. I just want the satisfaction of maybe wearing and also just knowing that it's done. I can sleep at night. So again, Plumeria top by Wool and Pine Design. You'll notice that's my third third Wool and Pine Design uh, pattern, and the reason why is because I feel like they are size inclusive, which is great, but they're not just size inclusive. They show a lot of their patterns in models of different sizes, and they offer this sort of flexibility of fit for different body shapes that I really appreciate. You can tell that they put a lot of effort in making sure that you can get the fit you want um, on your body, regardless of your proportions. It's not just a question of size; it's also a question of proportions. Um, and yeah, I just really appreciate the work that they're doing in that way. And I've been really happy with the two garments that I've made so far with them, and I will probably make others. Support people who support the existence of fat people. Like any time like I'm allowed to exist, I'm just so grateful. My next work in progress that I have is this color work cowl. It's the Foresta Lumina. It was a kit from Akara Yarn, which is also uh, retired from the yarn selling. She sells fiber now. And this is just a kit that I got at Knit City, Canada, in Montreal, because I wanted to try a different breed. This is when I was starting to get really interested in fiber content, and this kit is it was mini skeins of untreated blueface Leicester wool, and I had just had a class about knitting with Stephanie Pearl McPhee, where she really, talked to us about yarn in general, the properties of wool. I also had another class about breed specific wool. So anyway, I was really determined to find something that was color work made with non-superwash, non-merino, because I wanted to, hear what like really feel the difference for myself, like. And it's lovely. I have to do some more work on this because I have to join the two ends of the cowl together. But also, the pattern came with instructions for duplicate stitching on a lot of these sections. So I just blocked this before I did duplicate stitching because I figured it would help um, with just like make it easier to work on. So now I'm going to, well, there's a million ends to weave inside. But frankly, I'm just thinking I'm gonna, because it's untreated wool, I'm gonna spit splice them. And it's inside, so who's gonna be the boss of me, you know? And then just do the duplicate stitching, and that will be it. But same thing, I didn't. This is in progress. And then my last work in progress is just really, really quickly a project that I'm making for my boyfriend's birthday in November. And it is the Snuggle is Real Cowl by Maxime Cyr, who is a Québécois designer, I think. And I got the yarn from Pure Laine. It's their DK base. I got it because we saw, with my boyfriend, we saw a sample of the cowl at a twist festival, and we felt that it was really great. And I realized I should just get the yarn that they used um, for that cowl and just remake. And it's a slip stitch design, very simple but very nice. And the inside is going to be lined with alpaca, so it's very snuggly and nice. This is flying by, and yeah, very. This is my active work in progress because, again, deadline knitting because of birthday. After that, I should just knit something casual. Although, like, I'm thinking, oh, but what about Halloween? I won't have a Halloween project. I might have to cast on something for Halloween, but I don't know what it is yet. So that was my first year of knitting. Overall, we're looking at, okay, let me see, 19 projects, 5 of which are works in progress because they're the flipping single socks, and 2 of which are frogged or to be frogged. So the hat is basically 2 Musselburgh hat. I thought that I made more. I, consuming a ton of um, content, I guess, from other people, it really made me. It can be this double-edged sword of feeling tremendously inspired, but also, obviously getting into a comparison game of, oh my god, all of these, the first year of knitting, or here's what I knit this year video is a thumbnail of a person holding a giant stack of sweaters, and you're like, oh my god, um, how come I have, or I made like three garments, and that's really not that much, and I feel like all I do is knitting. Like, what happened? I just want to name a few things here. I think something that is talked about but not nearly enough is the fact that when you're a person in a bigger body, you got a lot more stitches to go through. And so maybe I should review my expectations when it comes to the number of finished objects that I put out in the world. And directly after this, I want to name the fact that, goddamn, like, this isn't this isn't a situation where I have to knit for my life. Like, um, you know, I don't do this for a living. I just do it because I'm obsessed and I like it. And any time that I spend, knitting, is just like a good time. So I get to do a lot of that this year. And I'm really grateful for having learned that skill, for how it connected me to people through just a different medium, I started a group of fiber crafts that I host at at my house. uh, I started this in February, and I've been meeting people regularly. I've made new friendships through craft, being able to share, um, you know, your deep obsession for something that brings you joy with other people is just something that it doesn't show up on Ravelry data, right? But it's just really wonderful, and I really can't wait to see what my second year of knitting looks like, and the other, what will be my next project that I tell myself is just outside of my my skill level, but that I really want to work towards because it really makes me excited. It's just like, I'm really excited about it, like, and also learning about fiber, learning about sheep farming, about the uses of wool outside of knitting, how it's a sustainable, it's an industry that we can make sustainable, that's already sustainable in some ways, but we can work to make it even more sustainable, how we can incorporate more wool into our daily lives, and just, yeah. um, had this class that was it was taught by someone else, but it was made by a hunter. If you get a chance to participate in one of her lectures about breed specific wool, it was one of the best times ever. I got to learn so much and feel connected to others. So yeah, all of these experiences are not finished garment, but they are things that happen through being a part of the knitting community. Though, like, mostly from my own little corner by myself, but still. um, it's really dark now, isn't it? Yeah, it's cozy. Um, yeah. So it's not a big pile of finished objects. It's a few finished objects, but I learned a lot through a bunch of them, and I hope that I learn a lot more in my second year of knitting. I feel like I've been talking for 6 hours, so I don't know um, how relevant it is that I talk about my aspirations. I guess quickly I would say that, well, I have some dream projects or some aspirational projects. This winter, I will be knitting the Arctic Likes from sweater, so the all over cable sweater I talked about before, from Kuutar. Um, so that's in the works, and I'm excited. And another thing that I would like to learn in my second year is steeking. I really want to make a colorwork cardigan. Is something that I would really love wearing, and I've never steeked anything before. I'm a bit intimidated because I don't have a sewing machine. So I know that you can secure stitches without a sewing machine, but just overall, I'm a bit intimidated by the whole thing. I would love to make a seamed garment, so knit something in pieces and then seam it together, because I think it's a construction I have never really tried. I mean, to be fair, I still haven't made like a basic raglan, so sure, I will make a raglan. I really want to make the Rumble raglan Lydia Lydia Morrow. Rumble raglan here. Uh, she's such a cool girl. I want to be her a little bit. So yeah, steeking, seamed garments, all over cable sweater, and just a simple raglan to just have had the experience of it. I would also really like, but I don't think that's second year of knitting. I think that's for the future. I would really love to knit a lace weight shawl in the Shetland style, a Shetland lace shawl. Those are the things I'm interested in, and just generally more patterns that are um, for me. And that feeling I get with the Sorrel, to just get a garment that I actually see myself wearing a lot. Because to be honest, I never will see how much I wear what I do have in the next year, but I just sort of always was knitting the thing in the season it was meant to be worn in, and so by the time I was finished with knitting the thing, it wasn't really, the climate just wasn't adequate for wearing that thing anymore. So I have to think about that more. I think that's something I want to um, think about more, what I would actually wear, what makes sense for me in terms of fit, and plan when I make it for being able to enjoy wearing it for the season that it's meant to be worn in. That's it. I talked so much. Oh my god. But if you're still here, thank you for watching my huge ramble about what I made this year. What did you make this year? Hey, if you're future me and still here, what did you make this year? How long have you been knitting? Are you still knitting? Is this a casual obsession that's going to fade away? Or am I still knitting, like, 5, 10 years from now? I hope I am. I hope I am. I would definitely like to make this kind of podcast again, going forward, to talk more about the projects that I'm currently working on. And also, I would like to include a bit more about, um, the process of it, because I feel like I would like to talk a bit less about items that are ticked on the list, even though it's extremely satisfying. Like, who are we kidding? Who doesn't love just like a big roundup of everything that I've accomplished? It feels really good. But I think that knitting is more about the time that you invest into making that really long process garment making. And I want to represent that a little bit more next time I make a video, and acknowledge how slow it is and how that's part of how garments are made. It's a pumpkin spice leaf. So this is awkward. Um, how do you finish a video? Like and subscribe. No, please. Please. Um, yeah, I don't know. If you're watching, like, just leave a comment, maybe. I don't know. Is anybody going to Rhinebeck? Yeah, that's a goal for next year. Go to Rhinebeck. I would like to make a cat sweater, actually. I had wanted to make matching sweaters for me, my boyfriend, my cat, and my dog. I think that's a thing that is going to happen. And then we'll take really cringy pictures. I think that would be great. Yeah, so here's to hoping this made sense. And I will be back, I think. Bye.